To the race for City Hall now, where Christine Quinn is mad as hell, and she's going to very politely explain to you why she's not inclined to take it any longer. The City Council Speaker, after months in the crosshairs of her opponents, shifting gears in her campaign today, or as the Times described it, she's now fighting those attacks, starting with a speech today. The upshoot, Quinn trying to show voters that she is more qualified and more gutsy than the other Democratic contenders, while claiming that her rivals offer more bluster than substance, and argue that only she has racked up legislative accomplishments.
Look, we're in a moment where New Yorkers have a choice, and they have a choice in me of someone who has an unparalleled record that's long and specific.
The reaction from Quinn's opponents, not exactly an "I'm sorry." From Bill Thompson, quote, "Speaker Quinn has sided with rich Manhattan interests at the expense of the working people of the city." From Bill de Blasio, Speaker Quinn's accomplishments include giving Mayor Bloomberg a third term and blocking key progressive legislation. But for my money, the winning reaction came from near also around Sal Albanese. Quote, "Speaker Quinn can brag all she wants about getting the wrong things done." Ouch on that comeback. Is this, what's your takeaway from this? That she's going to start punching back now, or that this is kind of desperation mode for her?
Well, she better start punching back, because it's almost over for Christine Quinn. If she doesn't fight back at this point, she will be an also-ran. I know she's still about 5 points ahead of Weiner in the polls, but it's not looking good for her. She's taking one step forward, and every time she takes a step forward, the Democrats go, 2 steps back, because you made a third term possible for Mike Bloomberg.
Jeannie, she's in a bit of a bind here because she got all this press coverage about throwing too many elbows, as it were, and now she's trying to play hardball with her opponents. Doesn't she run the risk of going right back into how she was just being described?
Yeah, I think they've made a calculation that, you know, despite those articles and all the commentary in the press we saw about what 2 months ago, 2 months ago, about how difficult she was, and she was yelling at people in the office and swearing and too tough, that she's got to come out as tough, because as Dominic mentioned, this race has gotten away from Christine Quinn. She should be the front runner, and she should have run away with it already, and she hasn't done that. In fact, she's going in the opposite direction. That said, historically, if she doesn't get the nod, and I agree she may not, that's going to be unprecedented, because somebody who has been this ahead in every single primary poll for the Democrats has always gotten the nod. So this will be a major change.
Richard, I can only assume that the Joe Lodas and Castamatidis of the race are just licking their chops at this.
Absolutely. Look, 10 weeks to go, very low voter turnout in New York City. They're bickering at each other. It's great for the Republicans, so, you know.
You're just enjoying the show. We'll get you some popcorn.
The show.
But the one thing I do want to say is that Christine Quinn should be looking at the Alan Hevesy for mayor campaign. It was a similar situation. Hevesy and his consultant, Hank Morris, told us he was the next mayor of New York. I mean, we didn't need an election. He told us that he was the next mayor. That's all we needed. He went up to Sharpton's and told the people there how he was going to react as mayor and so on. Hevesy came in 4th place, and that was the beginning of the end for Alan Hevesy.
Here's what I don't understand about Christine Quinn's problem right now, and maybe one of you can explain this to me. She's getting all this flack for enabling Bloomberg to get a third term as mayor and suspend the term limits and all of that. Bloomberg's still at 50% popularity, and that's almost unheard of 11 plus years into a mayoral stay. If what she did was give him a third term, but he's still pretty popular, why does that hurt her?
I think that's a losing proposition to even have Mayor Bloomberg support Christine Quinn. I mean, he did his time, that's fine. It doesn't help her at all by riding on his success. But that's over. The Bloomberg administration ends.
It says, to answer your question directly, it says that she's not as liked as she wants to be. Bloomberg, you know, for all that money, New Yorkers seem to like him for one reason or another. Either it's his initiatives, or when you got a few billion here and there, you know.
And I agree, but I think it also says that she's willing to flout the rules. She was willing to do something in her own self-interest, what she thought was her own self-interest, and forget about the rules of the city council, forget about the rules of the city.
Even if it leads to an end that people like.
Yes,
but that's... Forget that Bloomberg only won by 5%.
That's true.
I mean, come on.
After spending all that money.
Exactly. So people, this is fatigue. I mean,
but incumbents around the country didn't do so well as that day when Bloomberg won. So,
nevertheless, right on Bloomberg for Christine Quinn is not a winning proposition.
All right, we're going to shift to the person who may be the front runner in reality on the Democratic side, a guy who's certainly getting the front runner treatment from the press. Anthony Weiner is right in the mayoral race spotlight. He's doing the food stamp diet for a week thing. He incorrectly this weekend, by the way, said he coined the phrase Obamacare. That's not true. He got dissed by former mentor Chuck Schumer, who avoided Weiner this weekend, even though they were a couple of blocks away from each other in Queens. And Schumer was like, heck no, I'm not going over there. All that getting at least a little bit of play this weekend. That may explain why Weiner is reportedly set to put his best foot forward. Weiner telling a reporter his wife, former Hillary Clinton aide Huma Abedin, may soon be hitting the stump for his campaign. Now, last week, the Times published a pretty tough article, I thought it was, on Weiner's legislative record in Congress, or lack thereof, as the paper reported, noting that Weiner was known far more for his mouth and his moxie than for working to build majorities or pass legislation. Only one Weiner-sponsored bill became law in his 12 years in Congress. And then that followed the Times posting and then pulling an unfinished piece about the impact that his Twitter scandal has had on the women he shared photos with, one woman saying her customers still taunt her over the whole Weiner photo tweets. Dominic, you've been saying this for a while, that at least when this might
I
not...
said he was a front runner before he got into the race.
And that even bad press for Weiner might not be bad for Weiner?
That Times article that you referred to, any day that you focus on substance and not the sexual scandal, that's a good day for Anthony Weiner. You have quite a few members of Congress that have not been able to pass bills. And yet, if you talk to voters in his district or in the city of New York, what is Weiner known for? He's known for being a fighter for the middle class. This guy is the front runner. Unless something else comes out that we don't know about, or Bill Thompson, Anthony Weiner will be the next mayor of New York City.
You set me up better than a point guard.
Can we say all bark and no bite? I mean, doesn't it count when you actually need to do something as a legislator? I mean, what has he done? Besides yell at his staff and pass one bill that, you know, he received many donations from this particular person who asked him to move this legislation.
That may be a concern for voters. I mean, executives,
It is.
mayors and governors and
Credibility.
presidents, they got to get stuff done. They can't just be, you know, at the press conference.
Yeah, and before Weiner joined the race, this was the rap on him as well. He was very loud, but what had he actually done? If you could get beyond the sex scandal, which is why some of us said the sex scandal actually helped him to a certain extent, if you could get beyond it and look at the substance of what he's done, it's a little flat for somebody who's been in for 12 years. And even in the 2 years he had off, granted he couldn't do much, what did he actually accomplish? And I think to voters that is going to matter. And I disagree a little bit with Dominic. He has not been a front runner in the polls. Now we may not accept the polls, but she has been the front runner right along. I don't know if that's going to stick, but we have to give her credit for that.
Is there anybody at the table who doesn't think there's going to be some sort of follow-up bombshell on Weiner throughout the rest of this campaign? Something's going to come out.
Something's
going to come out.
We just don't know what
As
it
long as
is.
there are newspapers to sell, absolutely.
Right.
How does that not burst his bubble, though?
He told us something was going to come out.
He
I mean,
really
during
did.
the
He told
rollout,
Dominic something
he
was gonna
told
come out.
Dominic
which
knows.
was very smart, though. It was very smart on his part, because when it does come out, and God knows what it may be, he can say, look, I told you that there may be other women to pop out. You know, there are already things all over the internet about Mr. Weiner, all over the internet.
If it happens after the primary, and let's say there's a runoff and Weiner's in it, or if it happens after the runoff and it's Weiner versus Joe Lhota or Castamatidis, how does this not absolutely torpedo? I mean, how will he position himself and get around this bombshell? It'll recast everybody's focus on what happened in Congress.
I say it's certainly a big climb, but people like Bill Clinton have been able to get reelected despite huge scandals and $40 million later. So things happen.
Throw in Mark Sanford.
Vito Lopez is going to run.
Throw in Mark Sanford, too, just so you're hitting a Republican, too. Mark Sanford.
Mark Sanford? Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a totally different situation.
Because
with
he's a
Mark
Republican.
No, the man was in love. At least that's something that Weiner can't say.
I wonder.
Which is worse. Gosh.
But
follow his heart.
But don't write off Bill Thompson yet. No. He comes in with a sizable base to begin with. And remember, whenever there's an African-American candidate, the other candidate has to walk on eggshells. Because if you attack, you turn off the black vote. If you don't attack, you have Barack Obama, and then he's the president of the United States.
But is Thompson going to take this thing, or is he the in case of emergency break glass candidate for
Great
Democrats?
question. Thompson is only going to sit by but so much longer and watch Weiner dance to the nomination.
And
He's going
Thompson
to fight.
He's been raising money. I mean, you got to look at what he's been doing
Yes.
behind the scenes, and it's important. We still have 10 weeks to go. I agree. He is a formidable candidate.
I'm always curious to see where the behind-the-scenes stuff meets the, I guess, in front of the scenes. That doesn't make
The most
sense.
important thing in here is that at the end of the day, you got to vote Republican. You've had Bloomberg,
Oh,
Giuliani.
all
The
right.
city has done well. Vote Republican. That's all you need to know. That's
Former
Democrat
vice
stuff doesn't
chair
matter.
for the National Black Republican Association. Ah,
We
very
just happen to be right this time. I mean, you know?
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, well, first of all, we want you to send us a tweet, not to Anthony Weiner. Who do you think the front runner is in the New York City mayoral race? Tweet us at Rich French Live. Up next, the House is setting its sights on making drastic cuts to the food stamp program. Question is that really the best way to get our fiscal house in order, or is it just going to do more damage? We're going to sound off on that when we come back.